All right. All right. Hello, Craig.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good.
Good. So as you know, we're changing the way that we're doing the evaluation system this year, and the way we're observing, giving feedback is changing as well. So this is going to be one of my first times going through this. So appreciate your patience working through it with me. And so the purpose of our conversation today is to review your self-assessment and then take a look at and set goals, and then take a look at what you've got going so far. So then we'll focus on your setting up your formal observation. Probably do that in October sometime. Okay.
What? And I'm looking forward to the collaborative nature of this work that, focusing on both my professional and student goals. And I think it'll make a difference for, improving student achievement and allowing me to grow as well.
Okay. Well, we're learning this together, so, I hope you're as patient with me as I'm going to be with you, and we'll try to work through this and figure out how we're going to make it work. So by the end of this conversation, I hope we'll have looked at your self-assessment, which you've brought with you, and be able to identify your professional growth goal and your student growth goal or goals. And so what do you hope to accomplish?
Well, I hope we come out of this with a shared understanding of my intended professional growth and the growth goal for our students.
Okay. So as a school, we're working on implementation of student engagement strategies and student ownership of learning, and developing strategies around that. So I'm curious, what did your self-assessment show you with regards to that topic and that focus?
That when you self-reflect, it's usually interesting. But out of the self-assessment, one of the things that I recognized was about classroom discussions in my room, and that maybe they're not as genuine as I would like them to be. And so I'm really interested in class discussions and asking more authentic questions in the classroom.
Well, and that matches what I remember us talking about last spring at our evaluation at the end of the year, around student engagement and needing to increase that. So that's a good possible area of focus for you. I'm hoping it's something you did some self-reflecting over the summer with. Have you started collecting any data on where your students are as a baseline with regards to that as you develop this goal?
Yeah, actually, we jumped on that as a department right out of the chute, because we gave all the students a pre-assessment that covered actually the entire year.
Oh, wow.
And so out of that, I was able to kind of place my students in groups. But then most recently, we all did a pre-assessment over the unit that we're going to cover.
Okay.
And what that did was allow me to identify student misconceptions, and most glaring in that case was that most of the kids are still thinking additively instead of having moved to multiplicative thinking.
Okay. Okay. So based on that, and based on the feedback you received last spring, at the end of the year, your self-assessment, your student data, and the building focus is, what's the criteria that you decided to focus on this year?
Well, this year I want to focus on criteria too, and some of that comes out of the summer as I read some more in our framework, recognizing that I'd like to develop more effective teaching practices. And this goes back to my comment about the classroom discussions and questions. But I plan to research and become more familiar with strategies to help students build understanding and engagement. And so I want to focus on questioning strategies, student talk, and then re-engaging students, strategies for that. And so I'm hoping to implement some of those things before the end of the year, and hoping to see higher engagement and richer learning on the part of the kids.
Okay. So what are you learning about this particular area of focus thus far?
Well, again, on that reflecting thing and actually deliberately holding a mirror up, I found that probably the way I'm currently questioning is not as inviting as I'd like it to be.
Okay.
So for example, I would say, it used to say, does anyone have any questions? And so to try to make that a bit more inviting now, I'm trying to say, what questions do you have?
Okay. That changes
Acknowledging that they do. So this will be one of the three things that I work on this year, trying to increase my instructional effectiveness. And then also the increasing the level of student talk in the classroom, in discourse that we're having. And so I'd like to see more student-to-student conversation and less student-to-teacher conversation. And then the last one is being able to apply some re-engagement strategies when I see kids are checking out.
Okay, so have you tried any of these yet?
Well, I like to start with things where I think I can be successful. And so I
That makes sense.
chose, on the questioning side of things, I went with trying to reduce the number of yes/no questions I asked.
Okay.
And asking a bit more open-ended. The other thing I've asked students to do is to get them to try to have discussions amongst themselves, is this ask three before me kind of thing, so that they're required, we play this little protocol, where they have to ask three colleagues before they can come back to me for help.
It's probably building some leadership in your classroom too.
Yeah, there are some that are stepping right up, but I'm finding that I'm still having to prompt for that quite a bit.
Okay. Well, I like the way you're scaffolding, for higher level thinking as we move to the Common Core. I like that. So, how has have you noticed any your student engagement or your student learning improved as a result of what you've tried?
Well, at this point, all I have is anecdotal observations. And what I've noticed as a class, holistically, that engagement seems to be up. That they are, even when they're working in groups, they are trying to ask each other questions rather than relying on me exclusively. And so I'm excited to be able to try to incorporate that teaching strategy with my student growth goal.
Okay. So what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks? What are you going to focus on?
Well, the unit we're in deals with ratio and proportion, and so we're going to engage the kids in looking at how much space they have and whether that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
That fair is always a hot topic.
Yeah.
So they're going to explore the ideas of ratio and proportion through that. And since I'm on focused evaluation, and I'm applying this to the whole class, I'm thinking that I want to use this with criteria 6 for my student growth goal. So the student growth goal would be something to do with student understanding of ratio concepts and using ratio reasoning to solve problems, and then using that language appropriately. And then the space part is that they would be solving real world problems. So these are all anchored in the Common Core. And so ultimately they're going to be exploring how much space they have and creating a unit rate, and then from that deciding whether that's fair or not.
Okay. So what's your student target with regards to the end of this observation cycle?
Well, I'm aiming high.
I like that.
So in this unit, so between now and November,
Okay.
85% of the students are going to demonstrate at least one level of growth on the district unit assessment, and then 70% of them are going to demonstrate proficiency on our PLC developed formative assessment prompts / smarter balance prompts.
Okay.
But I'm also going to track their perception of mathematics, because that impacts ultimately their performance as well.
Okay, so you have multiple sets of data there. What evidence do you want me to observe for with regards to your practice and what you're going to be doing with regards to student learning, and then what kinds of feedback would you like me to provide you at the end of the next couple of weeks?
So I think where you could really help out is in this criteria 2 thing around classroom discussions. So again, my goal is to have increased student discussions and less teacher-student discussions. And so if you could observe for how that's facilitated in the classroom and how extensively that's occurring in the classroom. And then I'd really be interested in your feedback based on what you observe, and then any suggestions that you have for ways to improve on that.
Okay. So I want to make sure that we understand your areas of focus and we get it all down on the right form. So your professional growth goal written as a SMART goal is?
Well, because you prompted me to come ready for that,
Appreciate
I wrote that down. So my professional growth goal will be that I will implement a minimum of 3 of the strategies that are proven to help students' understanding and engagement by the end of the school year. And as a result of those efforts, I will see higher engagement in my classroom, and students will experience more meaningful learning.
So those will be mostly measured by observation then?
I think so. You know, the number of student-student interactions versus teacher interactions.
All right, that gives me an area to focus on. So then for your student growth goal written as a SMART goal is?
Okay, so that goal will be for students to understand ratio concepts and use ratio reasoning to solve problems using the language of ratios, the concept of unit rate, and solving real-world problems.
Okay.
That's a mouthful.
It is.
But that's the way it's in the Common Core. But the target will be that between now and the end of the unit, so between now and September, 85% of them will just demonstrate that 1 level growth.
Now in November, right?
Now in November.
Okay.
On the district unit assessment, and also then 70% will achieve proficiency on our PLC developed assessments, which include some of the smarter balanced released items. And then also I'm going to track their perception or changes in their perception about how they feel about mathematics.
Okay. So both goals seem to really match that SMART format that we've been training and showing you. So I think they're all specific, attainable, relevant, timely, all those pieces that we've been talking about. So I think measurable, each one of those. So based on those outcomes, it seems like I should come in on the date that we talked about, which was Monday, October 7th, during 3rd period. Does it sound all right?
Yeah, no, that's,
Okay.
let's just plan on that.
Okay, well then, all right. So I'll look forward to seeing you then.
Okay.
Go Cougs.